Well, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I hope you guys are doing wonderful. I've got an interesting video for you today. I want to talk about Renogy, and this is a new charge controller that I got for my installation on the Chinook. This is the 40 amp MPPT Rover charge controller. So let's go ahead and open this package up and see what's included. But before I do that, here are some of the key features. So feel free to pause your screen if you want to read any of that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and open the package and see what comes with this charge controller. So the first thing you see is the owner's manual. Set that aside, and you have a bag, and in this bag you've got your temperature sensor that goes on the side of your battery. Okay, so it's kind of cool. Right here you have a contact card, so if you want to take a look at any of that information to get a hold of Renogy, there's all the contact info. And the next thing we see is some brackets that we'll be installing here in this video. A couple stickers. I thought that's kind of cool. Stickers are always cool. And what else do we have here? Nothing left in that box. So we'll just set that aside, and as you can see, the charge controller comes packaged very well and it's protected really well. Comes with a nice bag around it. And that's what it looks like. So Renogy 40 amp charge controller. We'll go ahead and take this plastic off right now. And there you have it. So as you can see, the temperature sensor goes here, and you've got a positive and a negative coming in from the solar panel, positive and negative from the battery, and a positive and a negative that goes to your load. If you have an external display, you can plug that in here. And as you can see, the back of the charge controller has very nice aluminum heat deflectors. So nice fins there, so it'll dissipate that heat. And I like these mounts right here. So if you have your screws, you just get the right distance, and then as the gravity will let the thing fit on the screws. So very cool. So all you have to do is mark the distance here. But that's pretty cool. So make sure that when you plug this in to your system that you always plug your battery in first, those terminals, and then your solar panel second. So it looks like a nice unit. Let's go ahead and install these little brackets, which will make it easier to put everything together, because I won't have to measure if I do it this way. So I think that'll be nice. Now as you can see, that center hole is threaded. So what's cool about that is it lets me put them just like this. Then I can put my screw just like so. Come on. And they will thread right in. And go ahead and install these brackets. And all that does is it makes it easy, so I don't have to measure anything. I can just put my screws in and mount this to whatever I'm mounting it to. So it just kind of saves a little bit of time in measuring and stuff like that. Makes it a little simpler. So I think that that's pretty cool that they include these. Personally, I think it would have been easier if they just made this thing a little wider. It would have been nice. When I installed the system on my parents' fifth wheel, I used this exact same charge controller, and it worked fantastic. And we did not install these on here. We just measured and made it fit that way. So now you can see whatever you lay it down on you can easily get a drill in there and mount the screws and not have to worry about it. Plus it gives you a little bit more distance, so you have more airflow behind the charge controller. Okay, so you got your charge controller mounted, and there's a couple things that I want to share with you that I think is important. The first one is airflow. So you want to make sure that above the charge controller you have a little bit of room to allow for airflow, and also the same thing below the charge controller. In the event that this thing heats up and gets hot, those fins on the back of the charge controller need to be able to dissipate the heat away from the charge controller, and the way they do that is through allowing airflow. So make sure again that the top and the bottom of the charge controller has plenty of room. Now let's take a look down here at the bottom left. You can see these wires right here. There's a small tiny black and red wire. These go to the battery, and it tells the charge controller what the current temperature of the batteries are. The next two terminals right here, this is a positive and negative coming from the solar panels. If we move over to here, we have a positive and a negative coming from the battery bank, and then over here we have a positive and a negative from the 12-volt load. Now, one thing that I want to say that's very important when you're going to plug anything into this 12-volt DC load, you want to make sure that you're not plugging a heavy amp drawing device in there. So you don't want anything like a battery charger that's heavy duty, or a power inverter, or nothing like that. So you want light duty loads if you're going to plug anything into these load terminals. Now when you make these connections on these charge controllers, you always want to connect your battery terminals first, then your load terminals, and then finally the solar panel terminals. Okay, so battery, load, and then solar, in that order. If you're not going to do a load, of course it's battery and then solar. Now right here you can see there are some indicators, and these are indicators that are LED indicators, and what these are is, you can see this very top one. This is your solar array indicator. This will tell you the controller's current charging mode. The next one down that's illuminated, that's your battery indicator, and it'll tell you the current state of your battery. The third one is your DC load indicator. This will tell you whether your DC load is turned on or off. And when I say DC load, I'm talking about these terminals right here, 12-volt DC. So if you want to turn this on or off, it can be done very simply by pushing this right button. And now you can see that that light has illuminated, and our DC load is showing movement right here, which is telling me that I have power to these load terminals. If you want to turn it off, it's just another single press of that right button, and it turns off that DC load. Now the last one here is your error indicator, and this will tell you whether your controller is functioning properly or not. Below that you can see this LCD screen, and then below that is the operating keys. Okay, let's take a brief moment and let's familiarize ourselves with this LCD screen. We're going to be using the up button for all of these movements that I'm going to cycle through this menus. The very first screen that you see right here is what they call the main screen. If I push this button, we're going to go to the solar panel voltage. Now it's dark out right now, so I'm not getting anything there. Push it again, we're going to go to the charging current amperage. Push it again, that 89%, that is our current battery capacity. And then push the button again, you can see 12.9 volts, that's the voltage of my batteries. Push it again, that will show us the load current. Push it again, that's the accumulated amp hour. Again, that's going to be the discharged amp hour. You're going to see this temperature in cellulose, and that is the charge controller temperature. Now the number 15, that is what load mode we are in, and I'm talking about the load as in those bottom right terminals that I talked about a second ago, and I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. Push it again, we're going to get the error screen, which tells us if there's any error codes, and then of course one more push and we are back to the main screen. So it's very simple to cycle through this charge controller. Okay, before we get too heavy into using this charge controller, there's a couple things that we want to make sure is on the right settings. One of them is in the bottom left, and that is the operating voltage of the charge controller. And then the second one is what type of batteries that we are set up for. So to enter the mode of operation, we're going to push and hold the right button, and you'll notice that it changes our screen and you see this little icon flashing. This icon, if you push the up key, we're going to cycle through different battery types. So we're going to tell it whether it's a deep cycle sealed battery, a gel battery, a flooded battery, or a lithium battery. Okay, so in our case, we're using a lead acid battery. So we're going to go choose flood right there. So once you choose the right battery type, push the enter button, and now you'll notice that the flashing numbers over here is asking us what battery voltage we are going to be setting our charge controller to. Okay, so this is going to be our system voltage. We're going to push the up and down keys. So there's 24 volt flashing. You have 12 or 24 if you want the charge controller to decide for you. But in our case, we're going to leave it at the 12 volt flashing, and that's the settings that we're going to want. So when we're done making these parameter changes, we're going to push and hold the right button and just once again verify that you have 12 volt and that you have the right battery type. For those of you that are using lead acid batteries, just know that it's under that 9. Okay, so if you see a box over here or something, you're on the wrong one if you're lead acid. So you want this one right below that number. You want that one because those are hard to see. They're very small. Okay, the next thing that I like to recommend is making sure that the load mode options are correct. So I'm going to cycle through the modes until I see that one that had the number 15. Okay, that'll give me the load mode option screen. Okay, so that screen right there, it's talking about what type of mode do I want this load, those two terminals at the bottom right. What mode do I want it to be in? Now, default from the factory is number 15. Now, if you want to change these, you can push and hold this right button, and you see that that'll flash. If we push the up keys, it'll give us number 16, it'll give us number 17, and then it'll go to 0, and then it'll go 1, 2, 3, all the way to 14, depending on how many times you push that button. 12, 13, 14, and 15. We are going to leave it at 15, but I'll explain what these differences are. Okay, so I'm going to push and hold and make sure I lock that down. So now that you know how to change it, let me tell you what mode 0 is. 0 is automatic on or off. So what that means is the load will turn itself on at night when the solar panels are no longer producing power, and then it'll turn the power off when the solar panels start to produce power. That's what 0 would be right here. Now, if you choose anything between 1 and 14, that is the mode called time control, and that's when the solar panels are no longer producing power. The load will be on for a specified amount of hours, or until the solar panels start producing power. So for example, if you put a 2 in there, then that means your load will be lit up for 2 hours, or when the sun comes out and your solar starts producing again. Now 15, you can see that is the manual setting, and in this mode the user can turn the load on and off by pressing the enter or the right key at any time. And I showed you that just a second ago. If we look at this screen one more time, you can see that load indicator, which is this one right here. And leaving it on 15 makes everything manual, where I can turn it on or off on my own, and I like it that way. I must have not pushed the button. There we go, it turns off. Now if you choose number 16 right here, that's the test mode, and they use that to troubleshoot the load terminals. So when the voltage is detected, the load will be off, and then when no voltage is detected, the load will be on. Okay, now number 17, if you put this to 17, that's where the load terminals will be on 24 hours a day. Okay, let's take a look and let's talk about the solar panel LED indicator real quick. If you have a white solid light, it says that the solar panel is charging the battery bank. If you have this light slowly flashing, the controller is undergoing boost stage. If you get a single flash, the controller is undergoing the float stage. If you have a fast white flashing light, that's telling us that the oversized solar panels are charging the battery bank at the rated current. And then of course, if this light is off, like you see right now, it's telling us that the solar panel is not charging the battery bank, or there's no solar panels detected. Now moving down to the battery indicator, you can see if it's a white solid indicator like what we're seeing right now, it's telling us that the batteries are normal. If you see slow flashing here, it's telling us that the batteries are over discharged. And then if you see fast flashing, it's telling us that the batteries are over voltage. Now moving down to the load indicator, if you see a white solid, that means that the load is on, so it looks like that. Okay, and then if you see this white light flashing quickly, that's telling us that the load is overloaded or there is a short circuit. Now, if you see that this light is off, of course, it's telling us that the load is off. Now, moving down to the error indicator, you can see that the light is off, and that's telling us that the system is operating normally. Now, anytime you see a white solid indicator here, you need to check for system errors, and there's a bunch of error codes that you'll see on the LCD screen. Okay, let's take a moment and let's talk about the error code LED light. If this ever illuminates, you want to push the down button if you're on the main screen, and you want to go to this error screen. Now the E means error, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 following it, with the exception of 7 and 9. So it'll be E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E8, and then E10. So E0 means there's no error detected. E1 means that the battery is over discharged. E2 means the battery is over voltage. E3 means the battery is under voltage. E4 means there is a load short circuit on those load terminals. E5 means the load is overloaded. So you've put too big of a device on the load terminals. E6 means your controller, your charge controller, is over temperature. Remember, I talked about airflow before and making sure that you have plenty of space behind the charge controller for airflow. There is no E7. Then we go to E8, which means your solar input is over current for what this charge controller can handle. And then, of course, the last one is E10, where your solar panels are bringing in over voltage, so depending on what this charge controller can hold. Now that can be changed whether those panels are wired in parallel or in a series. So if you're getting an E8 or an E10, that might be able to be fixed by changing how you wire those solar panels. Okay, right now we're looking at a Rich Solar 20 amp MPPT Charge Controller. You'll notice a ton of similarities on this main screen and these LED indicators. That's because this charge controller is actually rebranded, and it's identical to the Renogy 20 amp charge controller. So all the information that I talked about in this video applies to this controller as well, even though it's rebranded. So right there, you're seeing we're looking at the main screen. Push that up button. We're going to be looking at the solar panel voltage. I don't have any solar panels hooked in. Push it again. We're looking at the charging current. We're also looking at the battery capacity, looking at the battery voltage. The next one that we're seeing is the load current and the accumulated amp hour, the discharged amp hour, the charge controller temperature, the load mode, so whatever load mode we're in, and then there's our error codes, and then of course back to the main screen. Now the same thing applies for turning on the load. If we want to push and let this light up, I don't know if you can see it from your angle, but I can tell you that this light is definitely illuminated. So our load, you can see the little arrow climbing to the right telling us that these are energized, and then again a single press turns that off and we don't have a load anymore. The terminals on the bottom are identical, so you have your battery temperature sensor, You have your positive and negative from your solar panel, positive and negative from the battery, and positive and negative going out to your load. So again, if I push that right button, the load comes on. On this case, we have just powered these 12-volt sockets. So again, push that and turn it off. So I hope this helps you out in the event that you may have a charge controller similar to this, because again, it's the same identical thing as far as the operating system. It's just rebranded. So this is a good charge controller. I'm basically running the 20 amp version of this right now, but I'm exceeding the amount of wattage that charge controller can handle, so I had to upgrade to this one. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some good useful information out of it. Please feel free to leave comments down below. Like this video, share this video, check the description box. I'll put links where you can find this. And until next time, thanks for watching. Hope you have a beautiful day. We'll see you then. Bye for now.